on to the next headline. So for headline number 1, we have social media creators, podcasters, and won't be regulated under the new liberal online streaming law. This is based on a CBC article, and within this article, it states that the CRTC previously said companies making more than $10 million annually would have to register. The Liberal government has released its final policy direction on the Online Streaming Act, which requires digital giants to contribute to the Canadian content while leaving individual content creators alone. The controversial legislation aims to modernize Canada's broadcasting regime. Canadian content has benefited from billions of dollars contributed by the broadcasting on TV, radio, cable, and satellite. But Canadians are increasingly consuming their content online. On Tuesday, the Department of Canadian Heritage issued its final direction to the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission, also known as the CRTC, on the legislation in order to scope in streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, and Apple, because they broadcast commercial content as well. So this pretty much marks the end of the government's direct role with the law formerly known as Bill C-11 and the Liberal government's second attempt to bring major online streaming services in Canada's broadcasting system and will eventually have them contribute to local music and stories. So what are your thoughts on this, Jonathan?
It's a wolf dressed up in sheep's clothing. That's what this is, right? Oof. So what they're saying is objectively false. So everybody will be regulated on these platforms. They're saying no content creators and no podcasters will be regulated, but every one of them will be by proxy. So here's how this is going to work. There's 2 things to point out. First thing that these people said was they go, look, if you make restaurant reviews or dance videos or makeup tutorials, you're never going to be censored. That's insane. Except the CRTC's mission here is to prioritize Canadian content, right? And they want to prioritize Indigenous content, French content, and people from marginalized, equitable, all that other stuff. That's their priority, right? Mm. So how can you do that if you don't replace other content? You're not going to watch 2 screens at once. You're only going to watch one thing. So the only way that they can do this, and this is what I call soft censorship. I just made this shit up. So I know. So this is what I kind of call soft censorship, where they take things that don't necessarily need to be censored, like restaurant reviews or makeup tutorials or whatever it is, and they censor them in the sense that they replace it with this other equitable content, right? So this is going to happen no matter what. Even though they're saying no, that's exactly how it's going to happen, because they are in control of what these companies can broadcast. And what these companies broadcast is your content. So first, it's objectively false in that way. The next thing, the CRTC went and they said, even if you criticize the government, we're not going to censor you. Like hell you're not, bro. Come on. This podcast already got censored. Again,
on day 1.
Yeah, dude, I was actually impressed. That is like an accolade. Like, that's a trophy for me. Censored on Spotify, day 1. But here's why that is also objectively false. Because what happens is they have set up a rule where, and this comes from the government, where if anybody complains, if there is a complaint about a piece of content, say a Joe Rogan podcast or maybe the Blendr Report, if there is a complaint made to the CRTC, they then investigate the complaint, whether it's illegal content or not. And they were very specific about saying that. So someone complains about me calling them a blue-haired freak in the last episode, and they go complain. CRTC goes, oh yeah, that's harmful. That's hateful. Oh yeah. Because the liberals are the ones that are creating this filter with which they're viewing this through. Yeah. So as soon as they deem that it's a threat, what they do is they go to the proxy site. They go to Spotify, they go to Instagram, they go to Facebook, and they go, you need to censor this content. This can't be up here because it's hateful and there was complaints about it. So you're right. They're not going to go, hey, Jonathan, you're getting censored directly. They're going to go to the companies that allow us to distribute our content, and they're going to censor us that way. That's exactly how this is going to happen. And I'm telling you, when they implement that hate speech bill, C-36, this gets astronomically worse, because then these social media companies are now going to have a filter that they have to basically view content through. So now it won't even come to a complaint. Now it won't be some blue-haired freak going and complaining about my video. It'll just be, well, Jonathan mentioned, say, Israel-Palestine. He mentioned vaccines. He mentioned, I don't know, Joe Rogan. Fucking, he mentioned a litany of things that they now deem hate speech because it doesn't vibe with their narrative. Now I'm already filtered right away. So these things, this is a heavy-handed censorship bill. And by the government saying, our hands are off of it now, sorry, the CRTC is a government organization. What do you mean your hands are off of it? What you did was you passed it to your little brother and gave him a set of rules to totally fuck this country with. That's exactly what you did. So objectively false.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. And you know, it's another thing. What's also interesting, you know, is how does this affect Canadians outside of Canada, right? Because what is effectively Canadian content at the end of the day? Does it? What if it's a show that just so happens to have a Canadian producer or a Canadian a Canadian behind the scenes making I don't know, maybe they're the sound boom guy or whatever in a TV show that's on Netflix and stuff like that, or maybe it's just a script writer. Like, you know, what effectively is Canadian content at the end of the
parameters?
Day? And so what are the parameters? I think that's one of my biggest concerns as well too, and I just think that like this it had no reason to be even proposed, but we all know why it was proposed. Is because the internet is where the truth is being, you know, shown everywhere, and Justin wants to control the narrative, and he just can't anymore.
Well, I mean, you're 100% right. That's actually a good question, and I have an answer for you. So I don't know about every parameter they're going to use.
Yeah,
but I know at scale. There is a portion of this bill that says all these companies that have to register with the CRTC that make over $10 million a year in revenue, all of these companies now have to contribute money to a fund. It's a government-controlled fund, and through this fund, they will create content. So you're right. I'm not kidding.
So it's taxes on taxes.
Yeah, but here's what's worse about this. So you're going to be these companies, these social media companies, big tech, Netflix, all these people. They're going to be contributing to a fund where they have to basically, you know, give up money that they're making. Yeah, they're getting taxed on taxes, and that's fine. But it's going into a fund that is going to just be making Canadian content, but it's going to be regulated by the government. So you're basically funding state-sponsored content.
Oh, so we're just paying for CBC.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. So, but the thing is, it's not even us. So it's these big social media companies.
Yeah.
It's these companies that are now, they have to pitch into this fund. So once they're regulated by the CRTC, they have to throw an X amount of dollars into this fund, and then state-controlled media will be produced. And I guarantee you, all of that shit is going to be the stuff that is going to be prioritized, in and amongst other things for sure. But that's part of it.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting how not only will that be prioritized, but I'm waiting to see how this affects like algorithms in terms of like your YouTube algorithm. Is it going to change how YouTube recommends content? Because like, you know, YouTube does it in a way that's already perfect, right? It just does it based off of your interests. What are you already watching? What are you liking? What are you commenting on? So is it just going to completely take over your home feed, or is it going to be like a section? You know how like, well, a lot of the social media apps are doing it now. You know how you have your For You sections and then your following sections? Yeah. Is it going to be like Canada section and then normal section? Like, you know, how is this going to really play out? Like, what do you think about that? Like, well, how do you see it rolling out?
Well, it's actually, so there's some good news here, guys. I have some actual good news about this. First of all, if they were to apply this, it would take such a long time because, first of all, the government moves so incredibly slow. All bureaucracy, all red tape. So applying things like this take a long time. But if it ever did get to the point that it was on these social platforms, that's probably what a lot of them would do. So like someone like YouTube or Meta or whatever, they'd probably create like a Canadian section because that would give the illusion that they were sort of following the rules. That's what I would do if I were YouTube. That's how I would handle it. But to be honest with you, I don't even think it's going to get to that point, and here's why. Ever since this got passed over to the CRTC, what the CRTC said was, we now have to spend, by their own admission, years doing consultations. They have to years. So they're going to spend our tax dollars on this.
So government workers are going to actually do work?
No. They're going to hire more. They're going to hire more consultants to review. So they're going to go through all this stuff.
My goodness.
So they're going to go through all. But they're going to. This is actually to our benefit. They're going to, in a way, we're paying them. We're paying for it, which sucks. But the reality is the outcome is positive. So they're going to be going through these consultations with all these indigenous groups, all these the equity, the diversity, all these marginalized groups. So they're going through this stuff. And they want to identify kind of what you said was what is exactly, what parameters do they want to use for Canadian content? How can these groups be best represented? And then what they have to do, which they also admitted would take a lot of time, is decide which companies actually fall under the umbrella of having to be altered based on their content and how everything's sort of being applied within the technical side. Yeah. So by their own admission, this is a 2 to 3 year process from now until it's actually applied. But here's the actual valuable part in that. What this is doing is buying us time, right? So the Liberal government admitted right now they're going to take 2 to 3 years to put this into the market, right? The conservative government rather, came out at the same time that this article went live and said, as soon as we're in power, we are repealing this. It's 100% bullshit.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that if Canadians get their shit together and vote for a majority conservative government right now, and I don't think conservative's always the answer, but right now it really is. But if they do, one of their campaign promises is that they are repealing Bill C-11. So if the Liberal government, trust people to do what they do, if the Liberal government does take 2 to 3 years to get this into the market, then there's a good chance it dies before it ever gets any air. So it may actually never even be applied. So, we're complaining about it and going back and forth about it, and it is heavy-handed censorship and all that other stuff. But as it stands right now, if the government changes hands in 2025, we may never see this come to life. At least not until the Liberals are back in power, whenever that may be.
Yeah, and that would be interesting. And just to kind of like touch on that point, you were mentioning how a lot of people are really heavily leaning conservative. Recently, there was a rally that Pierre held in. I think it was like a small town in BC or something like that. He held it I believe yesterday or the day before. And this is like a super strong NDP riding. And he had one of the biggest turnouts at that event. And ironically enough, it's become a big discussion, more so earlier today and everything like that going on, where they were talking about if the election were to happen, there would be a supermajority. And I think it was about the report was saying, also I'm getting this from City News. They were saying about 60%, if the Conservatives were to have an election today, 60% of the seats would be Conservative seats.
Right. So
it would be pretty well. That would be one of the largest supermajorities, I think they said, since 1993, since Jean Chrétien's liberal government back then. So if it does happen, the Conservatives are going to have a lot of power in their sense to take action on things like this. So me personally, I'm not too sure how much of their word they're going to keep, but if they can just deliver on 25% of the things that they say they're going to deliver on, like this, for example, hopefully CBDCs, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
vaccine
there's a lot
mandates, but I'm not going to hold my head, I'm not going to hold them too high and say I expect 100% or less, because, it's still politics at the end of the day.
They're still negotiating, they're still bargaining, there's still different. You don't come in and get to rule with an iron fist. You still have to worry about the Senate, you have to worry about the House and all that other stuff, and you got to worry about what you're giving up to get what you need. But like you said, the positive news in all of this is that it looks like it is going to be a conservative majority based on where things are at today. And I think the only chance the Liberals have to stop that from happening is if they get rid of Trudeau, which may, in a sense, really get rid of that guard of Liberal.
Yeah.
So I hope. I don't know. I don't know how polluted or how poisoned that party currently is and what's going on within that administration. Sometimes you take something out and the whole dynamic changes. Yeah. And maybe that's the case. But maybe it's not, and maybe they end up being the same way, and whatever. But, like I said, I'm not through and through any one side in politics, but right now the Conservative government is just the right thing to do to correct course for this country. For sure. Yep. Well, if they do go through, they're going to have a lot to clean up. A lot. But that being said,
if you like this video, make sure you check out this one right here. And if you want to watch the full podcast, make sure you check this out here.